In this video, I'll be going over the complete process of how I built this awesome climbing wall for my kids' playroom.
Oh, this is hard.
Let me get your pigtails fixed. There we go. Now you're looking ready. All right, so we are going to be starting down here in the shop. I've got a couple of pieces of plywood here. Pretty nice face plywood, not a lot of imperfections. I've got my helper down here today. Say hi, Blake.
Hi.
All right. So she's going to be an integral part of the process, and by that I mean mainly playing on it after it's done. But the first part here, I'm going to cut 1.5 inches long ways off of each one of these boards, and that's just going to kind of be a trim piece to help cover up the 2x4 mounts, which you'll see later on. And then I'm going to take a sander and just go over all these edges to round them off. Say, I'm ready to sand.
I'm ready to sand.
So something tells me it's just not going to be too much help.
What are you doing?
Again, harder. Oh, you're spitting on it. Gross. So my help had to go up and take a nap. I hope she made it up the driveway okay, but now we're on to some fun stuff. Staining. I'm going to be throwing some espresso from Minwax on these, letting that dry for the most part, and then throwing some of this gray on there. Just kind of tone it down a little bit. So this is pretty easy. Just spread it on with a rag, wipe off any excess, let it dry. After this is done, we'll be moving on to the next step, which is clear, but let's go ahead and get these boards stained up. So I'm going to let this gas off a little bit before doing the next coat, and it's actually super handy to have a paint booth because it sucks all the fumes out, so I don't have to worry about them. It's kind of stinky though still. This stuff has been drying overnight. Please excuse the mess. Still working on it. Got a lot of shelves up though. Got to finish up those walls, get those windows out. It's getting there, but everything's dried up. It's been about 24 hours. I've actually got a paint booth I'm going to be moving everything into, and I need to clean it out because it's kind of just been storage for now while I've been working out here. But these are dry. I'm going to go ahead and throw some polyacrylic on them. So this here is the polyacrylic. It is a water-based finish, clear satin to go on top. I'm going to be spraying it because I really prefer spraying. Over brushing or rolling on, especially with something this big, which is why I'm going to be clearing out the paint booth. It will get rid of all the fumes and everything. Not that this water-based stuff has a ton of that, but go ahead, move these into the paint booth and get everything sprayed down. So after 2 coats of the clear, it's time for a little bit of sanding to get that nice smooth finish for the final coat. So you might be able to hear on the camera there, doesn't sound super smooth, especially right there, it's a little rough. So I'm going to take some 220 grit sandpaper and go over everything pretty quickly. I don't want to go through those coats of clear and into the stain and discolor it any. So just a quick sand to get it smooth, and then we'll be ready for the final coat of clear to go on top. So just that little bit right there really smoothed everything out. So like I said, you just need to go over it really kind of quickly, not to go through those coats of clear, but just to knock down any of those rough edges. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock the rest of these panels out. So as you can see, it did dull down that finish a little bit after sanding, but it's much smoother than it was. Ready for that final top coat to be sprayed on there. It was that nice smooth finish. And by the way, this applies if you aren't spraying as well. If you're brushing this on, sanding before this final coat is going to give you a much smoother finish when it's all said and done. It's been a while since I've sprayed in our spray booth here versus out of my garage in our last house. I really miss it. It is super nice getting all this overspray out. But anyways, I've got the 3 coats on the plywood here. I'm gonna let that cure for at least 24 hours before I handle it and start making holes in it for the mounting points. So we're gonna go out to the shop, and what we're gonna make next is some mounting points for the plywood to attach to the wall. I'm not gonna be screwing this directly to the wall because that's going to make a lot of holes in the wall and a lot of marks on the wall, which you'll see why when we start putting T-nuts in on the back. But I'm going to go ahead and make some 2x4s to put up on the wall to mount these two, so we'll go out there and get that done. So behind each one of the pieces of plywood, I'm going to have 3 2x4s, one at the top, middle, and bottom to mount on. So I'm going to need 6 total 2x4s cut down. I'm going to cut these just shorter than the overall width of that plywood. I think those are about 46.5 or 47 after cutting a little bit off. So I'm going to make each one of these 44. Now that everything has cured on the plywood, it's time for the fun part, which is adding the pieces to the rock wall. Now, this kit I bought off of Amazon was about $40 or maybe a little bit less, so it's not super expensive. Comes with 25 pieces here and all the hardware to get them attached to the plywood. So we'll go ahead and lay these out. There should be about 12 or 13 pieces per board. So I'll kind of lay these out in a pattern that I like. You won't really need too many tools. Just need a drill with a 1/2-inch bit, as well as a smaller bit that'll kind of be our guide hole. And then either an Allen wrench, or I've got a Allen socket to make it a little bit easier to use my drill. So I will show you the process of adding all of these onto the plywood. Now each of the rock wall pieces have 2 holes in them to mount these to the plywood, and they come with the bolts, washers, and T-nuts to be able to do that. As you can see, each bolt has 2 washers, one to go on the front side of the mount here and the other to go on the back side before it sits on the plywood. T-nuts will grip back on the back side of that plywood. That's what those little sharp points are coming off there for. So as you tighten down, those will secure themselves to the plywood, making a nice secure connection for your bolts and your climbing wall pieces. So I went ahead and laid out my 2x where I'm going to be placing these on the walls to support these. And one other quick thing while I'm setting this up, the reason that we're putting these on 2x4s instead of just putting them directly on the wall is, as you can see, these bolts stick out quite a bit even after the wood, the plywood here, and they don't quite come past what the 2x4 adds in depth. So these will be sticking out the backside quite a ways, probably about an inch, inch and a quarter. So this inch and a half of extra material from the plywood, so I want to make sure these aren't running into our drywall. I'm just going to go through and start setting these up in a few different areas, see how I like it, and we'll go from there. So this is what I came up with so far. Keep in mind these will be on the back side of the boards. These are just here so I don't put these rock holds directly over these to where those bolts would have issues with clearance. So this would be mounting to the wall. You could probably get away with buying 2 of those the rock packs off of Amazon to get these boards filled out a little bit more, but I think this is going to work awesome for them. Our son's 5 and our daughter's almost 3, so I think there should be plenty for them. We'll go ahead and start drilling holes and getting these mounted up. So you can see why I wanted to use a drill versus using the hand Allen wrench. This thing is very secure on there now. You see on the underside, those T-nuts have pulled into the plywood, making a secure connection down there. So if you have a drill or an impact wrench, even impact drill, to be able to get these in, that's going to be best, or else you are going to be torquing on those for quite a while with an Allen wrench. But we'll go ahead and start getting the rest of these in. Are you guys ready to see your climbing wall?
Yes.
All right, come on in.
What? How did that happen? I'll try it first. Like, you can go second after me. Oh, this is hard.
Blake, watch out. Come here. Let Talon go and then you can go.
Oh.
Wow.
I can't really get it. I can't really reach.
All right. Oh, good job.
How am I going to get down?
Well, you got to climb down. So there you go, guys. The complete start to finish on how to build this climbing wall for the kids' playroom. It's a great little project that you can finish up in a weekend. And as one of my favorite people to listen to, Jordan Peterson, has said, don't interfere when your kids are doing dangerous things carefully. This climbing wall gives them a great opportunity to learn some hand-eye coordination, some climbing skills, as well as some confidence while still being in a safe environment. Now they have gotten a few bumps and bruises on this thing, but like I said, they are in a safe environment to learn these things. They've had a ton of fun on it. Hope this video helped you out and you can get a similar climbing wall set up in your guys' house. I appreciate you guys watching Life of Bliss, and I will see you soon.
Like that. Okay? You hold on to them, then you can hold on to the top of the boulder, like,
Wow.
just like